Why don't we start off by Anita? How was your room this morning?
Oh, that was awesome. Carrie and I had a great time. And I'm hoping that the audience that was there enjoyed watching it as well. And well, thank you, Bob. So, no, that was awesome. Yeah, it was really cool.
Great. How about for you, Barb?
It was really good. It was especially good to follow up to Anita's workshop because she talked about trauma being the root cause. And I actually talked from my personal experience in the ACA, and I shared a bit more of my story than I anticipated sharing in there, but I think it was helpful for people to connect to. I think, stories are how we connect with other people. So it went really well, even though Carrie and I never met each other before. So
Yeah, she's a good egg, and it's almost on our show today. It's almost like Potapalooza, where you're matched up with somebody, and because it's hard to interview more people than you have bodies, so you have to ask for help, and I'm learning that is hard for all of us, not just those that struggle with some type of behavioral or substance addiction. It's kind of hard for all of us to ask for help. How about you, Tricia?
Always amazing. And Carrie was great. It's awesome when you can have, how I am, right? Like,
Yeah.
just that organic, true, genuine conversation on a very, relevant topic that I'm extremely passionate about. Hopefully I was at least entertaining for those that were in the room. I generally, don't look and just look at the person that I'm speaking with. I have no idea who was in the room. So hopefully I was entertaining and informative. I do think that it was a really good flow.
Yeah.
From Anita and Barb, moving into that, collaborative approach and comprehensive need.
Wonderful. I'm so happy that you joined us today. I love you so much.
The feeling is so mutual.
Yeah. How about you, Rich?
I had so many things that I would love to talk about. We could go on for hours. You and I have those chats in the morning, and so it was much like those. But I really, I guess, wanted to try to convey to the families that are on board what it looks like for their child or sibling or whatever it be, how it looks for them coming to a sober living environment and having to pick up these tools that we've learned in treatment and IOP and therapy and put them to use. Because now this is where the rubber meets the road. And so we're the boots on the ground people at the lodge that really try to foster that environment, to have that mental shift that took place for me, which went from the victim, self-pity guy who was only looking at what lacked in my life. And my new vision is what's abundant in my life, what is working, what I do have, the roof over my head, the food. Those things seem too simple. I had these grand ideas about life, but really what I needed, and my sponsor reminds me, is you have a roof over your head, you have food in your stomach, you went to a meeting today and you talked to your sponsor. Those are the most important things that need to get achieved for me every day. Money, my pursuit of money and all that was misguided. And so I hope we were able to talk about that a little bit without getting off track.
Yeah, what about you, Daren? You're muted. Gotta unmute, buddy.
Sorry. I'm not that old, but I still struggle sometimes with technology. Hey, yeah, I think it's been really fun to kind of bounce around and listen. I think the fact that there's this much interest is exciting. And I again, Adrian, this is a lot to put together. This is a lot of people and a lot of logistics. And I'll speak for myself. I'm not the easiest to kind of corral. So, but it has been really kind of fun this morning to see how many different approaches people are taking to this stuff. It's great.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
it's been such a blast, Adrian, and I want to jump in second. I think you and I've talked extensively about why I would never put on a summit. I'll certainly be the co-host, but just the pure logistics and the manpower, and shout out to Heidi as well for her ability to calm the chaos of tech and all of that. And then Jim, obviously supporting the woman and being able to really, I'm just so grateful for you to have put this on, because it is important. It's an important topic that we talk extensively about all the time, and there is still so much stigma and shame around the struggle, the even if it's not to a chemical. I'm addicted to work, I'm addicted to suffering, I'm addicted to, and so thank you again for doing this.
Yeah, I'm really having a good time. It's hard, I will say, to host something and then try to have a good time yourself, but I think I'm balancing it pretty well. It's been a good morning so far. I want to see if people have questions, comments. If you know how to raise your digital hand, then please excuse this instruction, but there is a heart icon at the bottom of your screen that says react, and then you can raise your digital hand. I can't see all of you if you raise your physical hand. Heidi can kind of help me look out, but I'd love to answer any questions and have the panel jump in.
Or you can type your questions in the chat as well.
Yeah, don't be shy, we're here
Y'all are
be
too
of
quiet.
service.
Yeah,
No,
you all are
y'all
too quiet.
Somebody's got something to say, I'm quite sure. And that's just me being big and bold, right? Like, we're all in
Yeah,
this.
and we'll be here.
We always
so.
have something to say.
Absolutely. And while we wait for that question, I want to highlight something that you said, Barb. You know, I share my story and my passion through storytelling, because I think that when we can make ourselves relatable to people, then it gives them hope. It gives them this vision of what is achievable despite their seemingly insurmountable odds at that moment. So I love that you shared your story, because I think it makes people be able to connect with you on a deeper level. And that's really how I try to show up in service. So.
And you two ladies are from Connecticut, so you might have to get together. We'll all have to get together. We're coming up in October.
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Sam has a question.
Yes, Sam. Love to see you.
Good morning. You know, I kept thinking, how can I go to the other room and listen to the other speaker? And then I'd be listening and I'm like, oh my goodness, everyone needs to hear this. And I'm asking a question so that other people can feel comfortable. Often people don't want to be the first one to ask a question. So Adrian, again, I know you talked about it at the beginning, but what was your impetus for doing this? Because we've talked about how difficult it is. Like, I give you 1,000 kudos. I'm like Carrie, oh my goodness, just organizing this and with Heidi's help and everything, it's still a massive undertaking, and just hearing everybody, it's so amazing. So share with us, I guess.
It was easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, says my husband. Right. So like normal Sam, I was on a summit that was to do your own summits. And they're talking about 3-day virtual summits. And I'm like, okay, so let me get this straight. Y'all clearly don't understand my business, because you're asking my audience to stay online for 5 hours the first day and then 10 hours for 2 days after that. That's not any kind of normalcy or boundaries or balance. So I said, yeah, I think I'll do a day summit. And I decided to do it in 3 months because September is National Recovery Month.
Oh,
So of course my husband thought I was crazy, which I am, but I really am passionate. I don't struggle with addiction to substances. I am a critical illness patient for 30 out of my 52 years. But what I noticed when I met my husband in church was that he was recovering from his fatal and progressive illness, if not arrested, which was addiction, the same way that I was dealing with my progressive and fatal condition, if not arrested, which was pancreas divisum. Right? It was the ABCs of recovery. Accept your situation and take action. Be brave enough to start over and over and over until you achieve your dreams, and cultivate a stellar support community for yourself. And then you can recover from almost anything. But what I see happening today is the same thing over and over and over again. That was the impetus, Sam. Like, we've got to do better. People deserve better than to just throw you out some crackers and say, hey, if you're hungry, you know, when you're done, come back. You know, I wanted to showcase that addiction looks like just like you and me now. It is indistinguishable from the normal person, if there is such a thing. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. And I can't even believe where it's leading. I mean, this honestly is God working through me.
I love that so much.
Mm.
And it's so interesting because you highlighted something. It's the changing faces of addiction. But is it really, like, when I saw that, it's just you're willing to put words to what we in this field see all the time, which is it is the, you know, high level executives. It's the parent who is a stay-at-home father. It's always been there. I think that just based on external circumstances, it's being highlighted in a more real way, especially with heavier drugs being put out on the street. You know, the recreational cocaine user at 50 years old who goes out with his buddies on a Friday night who doesn't come home because it's laced with fentanyl is making it seem like it's a changing face, but it's really always been there because to Anita's point, right, and to Barb's point and to Tricia's point, and those are the people I spoke to, is, you know, the underlying suffering, the belief system, these habits, these conditions that we are all operating under, thinking that that is the way in which we have to show up and live life. And that's really where my passion is most people don't even know themselves to be able to make that decision, because we're so confined with the beliefs that we grew up with, and we've never stopped to question whether they serve us in the first place. So it's so important that we do show up for this summit and talk, because I want to impress upon people the importance of giving yourself permission to do it differently. You know, a lot of what Tricia says resonates is, you know, just because it's done this way doesn't mean that's the way it needs to be done.
That's
and
right.
It doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
That's right. And we say that a lot. What works for one person could kill another one in this industry. So you have to be really careful. You know, you have to know when to refer people out. You have to take on that responsibility, understanding that you have people's lives in your hands, you know. And one thing that I have seen that I just thought of, Sam, was, you know, one of the reasons I chose the changing face of addiction as a title. 10 years ago, we saw primary addiction, secondary mental health. Now we see primary mental health, secondary addiction, meaning that they are experiencing symptoms that they are trying to get relief from. Whereas before they were experiencing hallucinations due to the drugs they took. We are all kind of in a similar boat since 2020. There was no day of remembrance for the people that died. There was no guidebook to moving forward. You know, we are never going back to the way that it used to be. Nobody was prepared. And certainly as us as first responders through the whole pandemic, you know, we never closed. But you saw the difference. Like you're right, Carrie, it's always been there. It's just, it's harder to hide now because people are not coping well.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's really important that you said, Adrian, that people are not coping well. And I think, you know, addressing that in itself also is a huge deal, because it gets exhausting trying to cope every time you're going into a situation, or you know you're going to be in a certain kind of situation. It gets exhausting trying to cope all the time. So even deeper than coping, we really need the healing, you know.
Yes.
I think that's what's so paramount in the whole process, is the healing of it. Because healing then implies, well, I don't have to cope, I don't have to manage that kind of thing. So I think it's really important to get to that space.
Yeah, and I definitely know too that as somebody with a critical illness, 5 years ago I made a decision not to turn my house back into a hospital, and I decided I wasn't going to go back on IV nutrition, and I was going to try for the first time in my life. I was going to make an experiment, live as a healthy woman for 100 days and see what happened. 5 years later, because 5 years ago right now, my husband and I were on a cruise. I was in a Zinger wheelchair weighing 74 pounds. And now here we are 5 years later, and I'm not cured, but I'm healed. And I made the decision. Wasn't anybody else's to make. It's my body. You can't tell me whether you tried to put a toe tag on me how many times? Didn't work. I don't see an expiration date down there.
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, I mean, I think that speaks to, and I'm super excited to talk to Coach Dave later on in the show about mindset, because you're spot on, is we ultimately are responsible for our own experience while in this human body, whatever that means to you. And you know, what I love about all of you guys is you have educated yourself. So you have absorbed information to help you make informed decisions so that you can then take ownership of your own experience in a way that feels really right for you. And that is how we do break free from addiction and mental health issues as well, right? I have to be honest, and this really rattles people and they get upset with me, but do I think labels can benefit you as long as they're supported with a comprehensive, innovative approach like Tricia has? Absolutely. But that's not what we do. We slap a label on somebody, put them on a pill and tell them, this is what you are going to live with for the rest of your life. And now they are living with this ideology that they cannot live any differently. And this is where I get really fired up, and I tell my clients and anybody who's willing to listen, does that serve you? Does that feel true for you? Do you want to live with that? And if not, we live in the day and age of technology, right? Going back to what Trish shared, right? You know, technology driven processes or solutions, but we have the information to then at least reach out and ask for help, which Adrian, you highlighted, right? Putting on the summit, you needed help. We all need to ask for help, and then take tiny actions to start to shift the way in which we experience our life, so then we can break free from whatever it is that we are struggling with, and then in doing so, free ourselves from suffering. So I totally believe that you healed yourself, and we all have the power to do that. We just have to put in the effort and get the right support systems to be able to do that. So I know we have 2 raised hands.
I see that, Thomas.
Before we take that question, I just want to encourage people. I know a few people are a little apprehensive to maybe ask a question. These speakers have taken their Saturdays and prepared for this. So if you can at least put in the chat something that resonated from one of the sessions for you. They love that feedback. It kind of fills their cup that they get to have these opportunities. And I'll pass it back to Adrian to share the next question.
Adrian, really quick, if you don't mind, Sam put something in the chat, and I just really wanted to just.
Yeah, let's do Tom, and I'll go back and read it in a second.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, I just want to say thank you. I was a little late, but so far I've just been amazed. I'm just soaking it up. It's like rays of sunshine. So thank you. You touched on 2020, some of the things we talked about in the breakout room. I think, I just moved back from Portland, Oregon, during their, experiment, with legalization that happened right when the pandemic happened, and it was such a sea change, like literally overnight when fentanyl came. And the fact that there's so much methamphetamine that is, everything's synthetic now, so like, and it's just pushing people to a level of madness. If they weren't there already, you're going quick. It used to be, you might be able to do some of that stuff for a year or two, and but now it's like a week and you're out in the street. It's like, and it just, I think for me that's the biggest thing that I saw in the last few years, the changing face of this is that, and they're putting it in everything. There isn't really a recreational drug market anymore. Like kids can't experiment. People that lived through the 60s and 70s, that's over. Like realistically, like that's over. And I guess I'm just kind of curious how you guys are experiencing that, and how I know Sublocade. We in our breakout room we were talking about MAT, and I know I was on Suboxone for years, and I hated it. I tried to come off of it hundreds of times, maybe thousands, and make it a week or two out, and and what do? I'm climbing the walls after you don't even start for a week, and methadone's very similar. I don't have as much experience with that, but I know it's just as bad, if not worse, depending. And that Sublocade shot was a miracle for me, but people have to think about it as a way to get away from it, and it's been a miracle. I've been off Suboxone for over a year now, and thanks to Sublocade. So that's what I've got. And so I not much of a question in there per se, but I am curious how. Thank you. But just thanks for all your time. I guess that's and I'm curious how that how you guys are seeing that, how that's affecting people. I guess
Sure. Thanks for your comment and your question, Tom. Really good insights there. That's something that really comes up a lot. So I want to see if Daren, can you come on camera and tackle that one with me? We've had many conversations about these kind of drugs being like you talked about, Suboxone, methadone. The Suboxone detox is one of the worst we've ever seen.
It's almost impossible.
It is horrible. So Daren and I have talked a lot about these things were meant medically as short-term solutions, not long-term.
Yeah.
Answers to problems.
Yeah, I don't see, I mean, I worked in a methadone clinic for a short time during my residency, and I don't know. I don't necessarily understand, taking oxycodone to help you off of OxyContin. I mean, there's some odd hair splitting pieces that just don't make any sense at all. Switching drug classes makes pretty good sense. One of my tricks, I love clonidine, that old blood pressure medicine. Yep. I love those TTS 0.3 patches, man. They're so good. They don't allow your body to react very harshly. It's almost like a good old fashioned beta blocker. You want to get anxious and lose your mind, and it just chemically blocks that actually pretty well. So low doses of Ativan I like a lot. I like low doses of diazepam. I mean, there are ways to help. I don't like the heavy drugs substituting other heavy drugs, because then you just end up with another problem that's just slightly different than the one you started with.
Yeah.
Right. And you want people to be comfortable, you know,
Yeah.
during, you know,
But-
you don't
but
want
not-
people suffering, but
Right,
Not
but you
too-
don't, but they don't need to be that comfortable. Like
Right.
you go into it and you say, look, this is no joke. This is going to be a little tricky. I want to take the edge off. I also want to keep you busy. So here's a schedule. Get your butt up. Here's where we go. This is what we do. You got a personal trainer. Oh, I hate it. I know you do. Just hang in there. Just come on, you know. But I think if you err too far on the side of comfort and relief, you end up kind of depriving them of that legitimate suffering to go through too. So I don't mind a little suffering, but I don't want it to be, I agree with you, Adrian. I don't want it to be crazy, but I also don't want it to be just another form of being altered, because then that
absolutely
kind of defeats the purpose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to be a soft landing, but you can't let them, stay there. It's got to be a little struggle, to recover. And we were talking in our breakout room about people going overboard on fitness or whatever, sugar, all those things, and I'm not sure I would have been as successful without working out. I don't go all the time, but without building those endorphins again, I'm not sure I would have filled that, filled those receptors with the correct thing. So, and and you touched on Ativan, and benzodiazepines are like almost vilified. Like it's almost impossible. So once you are honest with your doctors, it's almost impossible to even have someone help you with those. And they do have their place. When walking away from this stuff. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of those responses. Thank you.
Sure. And Trish, you wanted to say something?
Oh, wow. Sam had asked a question about, some of our perspective on, and I'm guessing, being recovered, or, what did she say? Coming up with a perception and decision to recover. And I think that that's important, because and what I had shared in the breakout room is, there's been, for all of the years leading up to now, right? It was, you're in recovery forever. And I think the first time I walked into an AA room, I was mortified that the old timer in the room had been there every single day for 30 years. But what I've come, and I'm like, oh God, that can't be me. Like, I can't be so dependent on that chair that, like I have to figure something else out. And so that's what I did. Now, not to say that there wasn't pertinent value in the room and being in a chair, right? I always knew where the nearest AA was, because it was a safer place to belly up than a bar, but it wasn't a dependency, which I was, kind of leaning into also with Thomas, your comment, and I haven't hit send yet. But, when we say, activity is important, 100%, bringing physical activity and physical fitness is important. But what we want to learn is we can cross addict into AA. We can cross addict into the gym. We can cross addict into our reliance on whatever sour gummy worms or the red punch that they're serving us in the group room at the addiction treatment facility we're at, right? Like, we cross addict because nobody's teaching us about the locus of control and how much we are truly in that external locus. Because as children, when we fell down, scraped our knee, and they were cleaning the wound, they shoved our mouth with a popsicle instead of teaching us how to sit in and move through uncomfortable to find effective self-soothing tactics. Instead, we've raised a society filled with people that need acknowledgement from their supervisors. They need gold stars from their teachers, and they need praise from their social circles. When, oh my gosh, if you get an A on a paper, or you get some award and higher levels of education, you're on the dean's list, whatever, that is your reward. Quit looking for something else to validate you. Validate yourself.
Yes.
So I say this to say, I'm an individual who doesn't identify with being in recovery. I don't call myself a sober being. However, I have a 30-year story that's actually longer, right? Like my first sexual assault, I was 4, right? Like, so this journey of needing to recover for me started at 4. I'm 54, right? And so I've been in and out of different seasons and periods and different types of recovery needs my whole life. Again, for eating disorders, body dysmorphia, something that doesn't go away. You just got to learn how to live with it. And I did that. Like I can look in the mirror today because I learned how I can, not how other people do it or comparing myself. It's what do I need? And that's my reward. And it wasn't dependent on anybody else. Sure, I had to learn things, right? But, so if you need to, choose for your recovery, however it feels right for you, right? And it's that, how do I want to see myself experiencing living? How do I want to experience all of my environments, all those people, places, things that every second there's something, right? Something new in your environments, but also how do I want to be received inside of those environments? And that's where you can come up with what does your recovery look like? And if that means, being a sponsor and being in a room every day for 30 days, then great, by all means, please do that. But if it's something that feels punishing or restricting or something like that, then don't. But if you're white knuckling it and you're early in recovery, go learn about post-acute withdrawal. It's a cycle, right? Like our brains function in cycles, right? So all of those feelings and emotions and things like that, that's moment by moment. Yep. Hunger is like hour by hour. Sleep is, daily, but it's still a cycle, and so we need to, sorry, Heidi, I'll ramble on forever. But thank you.
I'm giving you the fingers, Tricia, because we
give me the finger, man. But
giving you the fingers.
I wanted to address Sam's question there because I thought it was pertinent.
No, that was really, really good. The locus of control is, I talk about that all the time. How you recover from anything is how you recover from everything.
Yep.
You put your whole heart and soul into it, then you're going to get the rewards. You get a ribbon, you get a ribbon, you get a ribbon, you get a ribbon.
Yeah, but I know I'm supposed to hurry up, but I'm supposed to talk. So I'm happy to share time to touch upon this because I think it's so important, right? There's a great book, The Dopamine Nation, and I don't remember the psychiatrist that wrote it, but she talks extensively, and Thomas talks about it too. The reality is guys, life is suffering. I'm so sorry, but if you want to tap out, like, we can help you so that you can move through suffering from a place of empowerment and peace rather than avoiding suffering. It's not meant to be easy because it's in our challenge that we grow and we expand and we're able to understand our capabilities and what's possible for us. Showing up and creating this summit is pushing Adrienne outside of her comfort zone. But in that struggle, right, there is this understanding that there is this self-reliance, this ability to learn new things, to show up and do hard things that helps us grow and expand and feel fulfilled. And when we live in a society where we're looking for these external quick accolades, there's no depth behind it. So really, what is it that you're really celebrating? It doesn't feel good. Whereas if you're doing the hard thing, it's not suffering so much as discomfort. It's very uncomfortable to grow and expand. But when you give yourself permission to do that, right, the effects are self-reliance, self-love, self-resilience. You're not looking for external rewards and affirmation because you have the ability to look at yourself and be like, wow, I did that really hard thing. And not only did I do that really hard thing, but I learned this, and this about myself along the way.
Yeah. And now I can teach it to other people.
And now I can teach it to others because I do the hard things.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you know, again, I want to rephrase because I don't want people to suffer, but I do want you to put yourself through discomfort, because where there's discomfort is growth and expansion. And if you're not putting yourself in uncomfortable positions, then you're staying stuck in that box of limiting beliefs, habits, and behaviors that you identified with as a young child and up until now, that are keeping you in that place of suffering where you feel you need to lean into addiction, or where you're struggling with anxiety, depression, and the numerous other things that people struggle with out there. So
Awesome. Well, that's an awesome segue